Hi everyone, Michael Fudge here. It's time to start thinking about lab number 2. I just got back from skiing and I'm ready to go. Are you? Let's get started. Okay, our first U code in lab number 2 is a debug. There's already some code here. I'm going to try on line numbers, and it's our job to get that code working. So let's see first of all what it should do, and then from there let's correct it. So if we look at the example, it says enter your age, and then you're going to input an age. Whoops. And then it will output today you are, and then the age you input, and then next year you will be, let's add 1 to the age. So if I input 50, it'll input today you are 50, next year you'll be 51. If I input 15, it'll say today you are 15, and the next year you will be 16. So that's basically how this program should work. Now that we know how it should work, we can actually try to debug it. Without knowing how it should work, it's very difficult to debug. So let's just run the program. Enter your age. Let's do exactly as we see in the example so that we can estimate if the output is right. I'm going to put in 45. And I get a type error on line 3. See that on line 3? So when you get a type error, it's telling you that this type, which is an integer, and this type, age, are not the same type. So age is not an integer, or else I would be able to add these together like that. So a couple things you can do here. You can ask Python, what is the type of age? Come down here and say, hey, what's the type of age, Python? And it's going to tell us it's a string. And it's a string because whenever you do an input that we do on line 2, the output of the input statement is always a string. So it doesn't matter what I type into this box, it's always going to be a string. So it doesn't matter if I type a number, or I type a decimal, or I type a name, or a date, it's always a string. So what I need to do is I need to take this input, and then I need to convert it to an integer type. So generally what we do is we say int input like that. That's what we do. You get the input, and then you convert that input into an integer. And then you store it in age. So it's like a 3-step process. Input, convert it to an integer, store it in age. Okay, let's see if that fixes the program. So enter your age, 45. Today you are age, next year you will be next age, okay? It's not printing 45 out. So what I wanted you to do here is fix this F string here. So basically, remember, if you remember how F strings work, is it's interpolation. So what that means is you put an F outside of the string like this, and it tells Python that you want to find variables inside these curly braces and replace them with the contents of the variable. So if you look, right, next age is black, right? If I take the F out, it's just a regular string and the whole thing's red. So that's why it just prints out next age like that. So let's put the F in front of it, and it'll do some interpolation. Let's run it again. Age is 45. It says, today you are age, next year you'll be 46. Now, I don't want it to print age, I want to print the variable age. So in order to do that, I have to take this age, that's AGE, and I need to put curly braces around it, and then it will print the contents of the variable called age. That is basically how F strings work, is they are an inline variable replacement option for the print statement. So it'll say, today you are, and then right here it's going to print whatever the variable age is. Next year you will be, right here, it's going to print the variable next age. Let's run it one more time and put in 15. And it says today you're 15, next year you will be 16. Okay, that's 1.1. Okay, let's take a look at 1.2. In 1.2, we are asked to rewrite our code from 1.1 so that it uses format codes instead of F strings. So format codes are another way that you can print things out, and the way the format code works is it also does a form of variable replacement or interpolation like an F string, except there are special codes, and those special codes require variables after the string part of the code. So let's go back to our program and just let's take a copy of our program here and bring it down into 1.2. And instead of using an F string now, we want to use format codes. So where I have age, I want to replace this with a format code. For integers, the format code is %d. Okay, so I want to take this and make this %d. And then this is also, next stage is also an integer, so I want to make that %d. Now I'm just going to run it like this before we go crazy. And you can see it just prints out the %ds. Okay, that's because the way format codes work is after the string that you want to print, you need to put a %, and then you need to provide each of the variables that will replace each of the format codes. So there are 2 format codes, so I need to put each of the variables in here. The first one is going to be age, and the second one is going to be next age. And then I get the same program output as before, but now I'm using format codes. So you might be wondering, why are there F strings and format codes and using the comma operator? There's all these different ways that you can print stuff. And that's because over time, Python has improved its methods of allowing people to build strings. And, you know, originally we didn't have format codes, and then we added format codes, and the newest thing is F strings. So, you know, the right way to do it in the new world of Python is to use F strings. But you should learn all of them because you don't know if you're ever going to encounter somebody else's code that uses format codes. These guys up here. All right, in 1.3, we are tasked with printing out a variable called pi, once as a string, once as an int, and once as a float to 4 decimal places. Now you need a variable with contents. So, you know, I could go over here and look up the value of pi if I want. You know, Google, and then pi, and I can get, there we go. That's good. I'll take that. And let's use that. And let's just make sure it works. Okay, it works. Now let's write the code. So I want to print it out 3 times. Once as a string using F strings. So as an F string, I need to put something in here that will print it out as a string. Let's go up and take a look. I think maybe pi :s will do it. I don't actually, that's right. I don't need, it always prints it out as a string by default. Okay, so there it is as a string. Let's print it out as an integer. And I think it's D is the format code for integer. And that didn't work. Let me see what we got here. I wonder if I need to convert it to an int first. Int, like that. Okay, there we go. So take that pi, make it an integer, and then format it. And then let's do print. And then the other one is out to 4 decimal places. Now it's already a float. So this one is going to be pi dot 4f out to 4 decimal places. There we go, right? So out to 4 decimal places. So there we go. So I did all 3. I got a string, I got an int, and I got out to 4 decimal places. And I had to take that float and convert it to an int using the int function to get it to display as an int. Okay. Okay, for 1.4, we have to put it all together and write this program called Fence Estimator. And what we will do a lot in labs is we will end them with you writing a program, and that program you will always be given a very specific algorithm, because at this point in your learning, you don't quite have the mastery skills over sort of like thinking through how to write the program from scratch. So we give you a pretty detailed algorithm to follow. So before you dive into it, you should always try to understand the problem. So let's start there. So you input the length and width of your yard, and then it will output the perimeter of your yard, which is 2 times the length plus the width, the number of fence sections required, which is your perimeter divided by 6, And then the total cost for the fence, which is the number of fence sections multiplied by $23.95, which is one fence section. It says all output should be formatted to 2 decimal places. Okay. So, and then here's the actual task that I need to convert line by line into Python. This is usually how it looks in the lab. And let's give it a shot here. So it says input the length of the yard as a float and assign to a variable. So I'm going to say, let's call the variable length. And we're going to assign that to a float. Give me the input of enter yard. How about enter length of your yard? See, you need to think about it backwards, right? Because the first thing you do is the input, and then the second thing you do is convert it to a float, and then the third thing we do is we assign that to length, but we write it in the opposite way, which is a little weird with programming, but you get used to it after a while. So likewise, to do width, it would be width. Let's make that a float, and then let's input enter width of your yard. All right, and let's just kind of run it. My length is 34 and my width is 10. Okay, so far so good. It runs. So the perimeter of the yard is 2 times the length plus the width. So perimeter, I can't spell perimeter, so I'm just going to type, well, I guess per I meter is 2 times the length plus the width. And I'm going to just print perimeter. I don't like to write too much code because I don't want to introduce errors. So I like to write a little bit, make sure it works, write a little bit more, make sure it works. So let's see, length of yard 5, width of yard 5. I can easily calculate that perimeter. It should be 20. There we go, 20. All right. So far, so good. Calculate the number of fence sections. So the number of fence sections is perimeter divided by 6. So sections, perimeter divided by 6. And let's do that. And then let's print sections. So if I run this again and say 5, that's 20. I spelled perimeter wrong, didn't I? I meter. See? How do I know that? It says error name. Permeter is not defined, right? And I called it, that's not what I called it here. Perimeter, right? So I got to make sure I spell things right. 5. Okay, and it says I need 3.33. Now you can't have a third of a section of fence. That doesn't work, right? So one way we can approach this is we can use the double slash, which does integer division, right? Right now I get 3 sections of fence, but I really need a 4th, right? Because I need to sort of round up. I need to round up. So if you don't remember, the way you round up is you add a half to something, right? If you take, well, this is like taking you back to math class, right? But if you take 13.1, you know, that is really just 13. If you take 13.7, that should be 14. So the way we round up is we take the number 13.7 and we add a half to it. And then that gives us 14.2. And then when we divide, we just get 14. Right? Whereas the other one, if you take 13.1 and add a half to it, you get 13.6, which when you just chop off the decimal, you get 13. So adding a half is the dirty secret we use to round up. And that's going to make sure that we get the right number of fence sections. We're going to need one more than what we have. So I'm going to take that perimeter and I'm going to add a half to it. And then I'm going to divide it by 6 with 2 slashes, which is going to do an integer division. And let's try it now. So 5, 5. I need, oh, I gotta force the math right? I gotta add these first, then divide them by 6. Let's see if that works. 5, 5, 3 sections of fence. Whoa. Should be 4 sections of fence, right? Oh. Ah, right? Okay, so I'm not thinking this through, right? I need to divide it and then round up. Let me run this again. So 5, 5. So I need to round that up, right, by adding a half to it. Or do I? Well, it doesn't really say anything about rounding up. Honestly, you should be always adding an extra fence section, right? Because even if you have like 3.1, you're always going to need an extra fence section. So I think what I can do is if I convert that, if I do integer division like this, really what I want to do is add an extra fence section on there, like that. 5, 5, 4 sections. Or 5, 6, 5 and 6, 4 sections, right? Because the perimeter of 5 and 6 would be 12 and 10, 22. Okay, still 4 sections. Okay, that works pretty good. And then now I need to calculate the total cost, which is going to be $23.95, which is the cost of 1 section times the number of sections I need. And then it says to print everything out. So let's do a print perimeter of yard. And then let's print that out. And let's do it to 2 decimal places like it says. And then let's print the fence sections. And that's going to be fence sections. It doesn't say anything about rounding up, actually. I'm going to actually change this back to just, I'm overcomplicating it. Because it does say to print it out to 2 decimal places, which probably means they don't want it done that way. So I'm going to change it to just be like that. And then I'm just going to print out section .2f. And then cost is going to be, or we're going to print total cost. And that's going to be cost .2f. I think that's everything. Let's see if it works. Length of yard. So let's try to make the math nice and round. Like if we, what divides by 6? 24 divides by 6, right? So if I had, how do I get a perimeter of 24? Well, I need 6 and 4, right? So if one side is 6, wait. Nope. I need, yeah. So if I do, let's see here. Let me just try this. Let's try, we have one length that's 8. So 8 and 8 is 16. And then the other side is 4. And so that ends up being 24 perimeter, right? And so I got a goof somewhere. Oh, it's section and section. See that? So you always got to check your variable names. This is where you make mistakes. Okay. Length of yard 6 or 8. Width of yard 4. So that's 24 is the perimeter. That's 4 even fence sections and 98.50. And if I check the math on that, 23.95 times 4 is 95.80. So that looks right. I did a bad job in this putting it all together. I should have given you a sample run so that you know what to expect as far as rounding up or rounding down. I didn't do that here, and because I didn't do that, it's not very clear the approach that you should take. So what I decided to do here is just take the simplest approach. Okay, so there we go. I got it working. Well, that's it for this week's lab walkthrough. We'll see you next time. Bye.